Go!
Welcome
Shut
to...
up.
Why?
I don't know.
Why?
Carry on.
To a Deep Rock tier list where we tier the list and with the guns in the Deep Rock game. I think I may have stroked there.
You stroked. You
Yeah.
stroked.
We are here for the secondaries now. Right? Gen 1 of secondaries.
God,
We have
yeah.
completed the primaries.
You might be thinking, why is this video 4 hours long when they're only talking about 4 weapons? That's because we spent an hour talking about each. Actually, we don't know how long this is going to be, but either way, it is kind of interesting. There's only 4 items each time we do this, and yet they end up being as long as they end up being.
That's
even if that's
because
only
each
about an hour.
item has probably 17 different facets to it. You know, like things worth mentioning. And we're not going to not mention something that's worth mentioning unless we forget about it.
Yeah, like oh, I've forgotten.
Yeah, I've forgotten what you were going to build up to. I forgot what we're doing here. Basically,
Not to anything.
there's no real. We tried in the last video to make some sort of cohesive reasoning in what each letter means, but in the end, it just fucks stuff up.
It does, and it's not like it doesn't work for what's already here, because it actually can't. That was the point. We built it around what was already on the list, which doesn't work.
Yeah.
It means it doesn't consider the rest. Actually, we based it on what we'd already, like, literally on where we placed them already, kind of. And they moved around a little bit. We just based it on the primaries, basically, which means it just didn't work for the secondaries. Everything ended up in B tier. Ridiculous. I sort of trial runned it. Gave it a trial run shortly after we came up with that horrible system, and I realised, oh god, this isn't going to work. And I promptly hit the reset button.
I imagine you fucked up your simulation, but we'll ignore
What
that.
do you mean?
I mean, I doubt that.
It was very
That's
quick.
what I mean.
It was very quick, if that's what you mean.
Plus, you didn't have me to convince you out of your wrongdoings, and or convince you into wrongdoings, which is why probably a lot of people's favourite weapon is sitting in C. I won't say which one, but we all know which one it is.
Yeah, the stubby.
But no, in all fairness, that is fine. The Loki, no one defended being in C. Everyone was like, hold up. M1000 and Stubby in C? You can't be doing that. But no one came to the Loki's defense.
It's pretty confusing considering every engineered primary weapon poll I've seen has placed a smart rifle at the top.
Yeah. So I think it might just be that maybe, our audience is
clever.
on side of ours. That
they're
the smart rifle
smart.
can suck a fat one. Which could arguably make us put it down to D, but we'll leave it as is. We're moving on to the secondaries.
I don't think it actually deserves to go down to D. I don't think
deserves to go to D by the looks of it.
What?
Well, there's nothing in D, is there?
That might change today. That might change.
Today, interesting.
It might, and it's. Yeah,
Well,
it's probably the one that most people are expecting. As in. Anyway, so yeah. Well, let's actually get into this. Gen 1 secondary weapons. That's the Puggle, the Budugger, the Boomer Stick, and the Subutter.
The fact you didn't read that in order annoys me, and the way you said it annoys me.
I didn't.
I'm annoyed.
I was meant to read it in order. Anyway, that means we start with the Puggle. Let's put it in the holding bay.
Although, yeah, I'm going to keep up the arbitrary tradition of starting off with range,
range.
which is really a launching point to get us talking.
Pretty
and
mid.
It is, yeah. I
Pretty
think
mid.
it's one of those guns which technically you could hit the other side of the cave. There's no hard cap, right? But you're going to have to do a lot of calculus to
there's a
actually
hard cap to its range, to be honest.
Is there?
It's affected by gravity. That means it can only go so far. I'd consider that a hard cap to its range. because it doesn't have infinite range. It doesn't
yeah, well, some things, right?
I guess it's a soft cap in the case of the context of the game, where you'll probably always be able to get it across any given cave if you're using the high velocity, especially. But it's still not infinite. But yeah, I consider it mid-range only because it's dangerous at close range, which isn't always the case, but it is more often than not. There's really only one overclock sort of. Well, encourages
mid-range, you'll reliably be hitting it, right? Long range, you'll have to do some maths. Close range, you're going to be scared to use it, unless you ain't a pussy and you shoot it at your feet, so you can guarantee that everything around you gets hit, including you. But yeah, mid-range
it can
is
be used at
optimal range.
Because the breach cutter is like exclusively not long range. It's like,
yeah, that is a more capped one, which obviously we'll get to more then. But it is a fact that
there is.
On the secondaries, maybe, without thinking about it any further, but obviously the driller's primaries is that kind of capped range. Generally, obviously, some overclocks fuck around with that.
All the such bundles the same as the PGL, really, in the regard to range.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh boy.
But yeah, I think, optimal range is mid-range, which is not really a bad thing, but it's just a fact, right? It's just you have to keep in mind that you can't use it at all distances, which, is something. I guess, builds.
What about them?
There is 3, right? There is 3.
There's more than 3. There's more than 3. I don't think I've had a more complicated relationship with anything in my life than I've had with the PGL. And I can tell you with a lot of certainty, if you track it, like across since I started, it was definitely a love-hate thing. It sort of started off as love, ascended into hate. Now it's just in a state where it's like simmering. And I'm not sure which way it's going to go at this point, but it's somewhere in the middle. Where it still confuses me as to how it's good, but I think it still is, but it doesn't quite make sense. It's just, it feels like it doesn't have enough, it feels like it always doesn't have enough ammo in comparison to its competitors, and it is less flexible than its competitors in terms of what you can use it against. The only time you can ever use the PGL against single targets is with hyperpropellant, which makes you completely disabled against groups, but there's no point shooting it with the intent of killing high priority targets if you're not using hyperpropellant, and that kind of non-flexibility doesn't exist on the other two, really. And it's not like I can't get over that, it's just it still hasn't gone, it's still a thing. I can get over it, but it's still a thing.
I think defining flexibility in only the way that what type of enemies you can hit is not something that you can really say, in that the PGL is one of, if not the most flexible in how you would attack your enemies, right? And this was something I think someone made in some video, it might be Lazy Maybe or something, but the breach cutter, while being obviously very strong, you can only ever hit them if they're in the perfect area, right? But with the PGL, if they're just in an area, they will get hit by it. You could shoot it in the most roughest, rockiest terrain, on the ceiling, on the walls, anything, and it will just hit everything. Just kind of job done. And I think that type of flexibility, in that regard, is worth noting. That obviously that's really only if you're not using the hyperpropellant, and the fucking fat boys don't really care anyway. But it's just, using it like a normal grenade launcher, you can basically use it in any place. Like the terrain really doesn't affect how you or when you would use the grenade launcher. At least not as much as the breach cutter for sure, and the shard effect. It's a shard effect is pretty easy to use at all the times.
The shard effect gets over some obstacles in the fact that it can be used at any range, and it's like perfectly accurate. It's
pinpoint, but even then, But it is that like while generally you're not going to be wanting to hit like heavier, bigger targets with the grenade launcher. It still excels at dealing with smaller ones, even without its like unstable ones. I mean, well, obviously unstable, but it's ignition build, right? Which I mean that's the big one, isn't it? Like being able to set enemies on fire. That's a huge part of the grenade launcher.
Well, the only reason that that's sort of the meta for the grenade launcher is because the fire damage that it applies isn't affected by damage fall off. You have like, say the grenade launcher does like 110 area damage, which I think is what it starts at. It falls off to 50% sort of towards the edge of the blast, and it starts obviously. It doesn't deal 110 area damage in the entire radius. But if you apply incendiary compound, that's obviously it takes away 55% of your area damage and replace it with fire damage. That's 55 fire damage or heat or whatever. But that's within the entire radius. It doesn't change, doesn't get affected by damage fall off, and that's why it works, because it's always gonna. And fire will always kill a grunt once it's set on fire. So the idea is that it will always kill every single grunt that is touched by the radius. That's why that's the meta. And it does strike me as a bit odd that it like people don't have an issue with the fact that it can't really do that anyway, because I do take a bit of an issue with that. Especially when you consider your ammo pool isn't huge, especially when you consider other classes like heavy weapons and how much they can do with not a lot of ammo. Yeah, you have to be so much more considered with the grenade launcher, especially if you're not using the best builds. As in, you're not. I just don't like the fact that you're kind of hurting yourself if you're not using the absolute best builds. As in, the absolute best builds are almost too much better than it is without those builds, and I don't. It's a bit weird to me, but even then I wouldn't consider some of those best builds the same as what other people consider them. Hyperpropellant still kind of annoys me on principle, even though it feels good to use.
And it just is good.
It annoys me on principle, and it does disable you against groups like 99% of the time if you use very specific builds for your primaries that are usually quite annoying to account for that.
Yeah, but isn't that kind of just the point of the game?
No.
Like it's you would have to do this thing if it's the other way around. Like if you want something to be built more single target, you have to make the other weapon more AoE. That's common sense, and I don't think that's inherently a negative. That's just called balancing. It's called playing the game right. Playing around, like you get the reward of being able to one-shot basically Praetorians, right? Generally, is it a one-shot?
No, it's not even one-shot. I just don't. Exactly, it's my problem with Hyperpropellant. It doesn't actually come across as worth it to me. Even if
but it
feels good. It is strong.
It really is. Like you can just delete. just that spitball over there, no there ain't. That oppressor, no there ain't. That Praetorian, no there ain't. They're just gone now. They don't exist. And that kind of strength, it's just one. It's just an overclock though, really, right? And that is my issue with the grenade launcher, is its overclocks are like carrying it entirely. Like in all regards. Like, no, but well, I don't think you can classify a fucking hyper-propellant like super. Like your longbow grenade is what hyper-propellant is, first of all. But then fucking mini nukes, or arguably not even mini nukes. They're just kind of nukes.
Absolutely mini nukes, aren't they? No, they're not actual nukes. They're not even close. Obviously, they're like hyper miniature nukes. For being honest. So. Whatever, mini nukes, yeah, that boy.
Point is, and even the RJ250, that's a fucking. You can grenade jump, right? Which is like a thing it's a very popular way of moving around in at least TF2. I mean, all the other ones are fucking nothing special, but 3 out of 6, right? Or 5 is 6, isn't it? There's like 2 ammo ones and like an area one.
Yeah.
It's not those 3. But that is where my issue with it comes. Those 2 ammo ones are objectively not worth using, right? There's no argument to use them. And I like the area one, but I feel that it's not as good as the other ones. And I have to use the fire on it. Because if you're not doing something special, then you have to use the fire. It's a required upgrade unless you're, running a fucking nuke or high propellant. And even high propellant, fire is still a good shout.
I sort of I ran a little bit of an experiment with the PGL, and it was that I tried to see how I could make it, obviously without Fat Boy or without Incendiary Compound, if I could make it deal enough damage to kill a grunt at the very edge of the blast. And to do that, you have to use either Clean Sweep or Pack Rat, and you have to use Homebrew Powder as well. And it just sort of came down to me just like the builds were so specific to allow for this, and even then it wasn't consistent. And I kind of just don't get how it's gotten by where that isn't easily possible. I feel like grunts are so weak. I feel like they should be able to just die, but at the same time, it's not like they're left on a great amount of health. It's the kind of health that your turrets can easily pick them off from.
Treaders now.
Yeah, but I don't even know if it's specifically the overclocks. I think the overclocks there's a meta in the overclocks that you're supposed to use, but I think Incendiary Compound is doing far too much heavy lifting as a single mod that also converts your damage. It's kind of annoying. It's the thing that makes it really viable against large groups of enemies and also groups of Mactera as well, whereas the normal explosions won't really do a whole lot to them.
This isn't really a valid, and not your argument, the one I'm about to fucking straw man. Like, if you were to remove that mod, how much weaker the grenade launcher would end up being.
But even with it, you can't kill things like you can't kill Brundles and guards in one shot. I mean, you can't set guards on fire with it outright. If you hit them directly with spiky grenade, you can, but guards still get left. It does some okay things, like you can set a warden on fire in one shot, even with RJ250 with full ammo. It still works for certain things. But yeah, I guess once again, I guess that's almost a problem in that it's doing so much heavy lifting. Especially when what it's competing with in that tier is high velocity, which is only useful for Fat Boy, but genuinely, as in
because it's the only overclock where you can. Yeah, it's that's the only overclock where you don't need the fire one on it. Is Fat Boy.
Yeah, and that's the only reason I respect Fat Boy. By the way, I think it's still too little ammo for like it's that level of like just decimating large groups. It can be done by pretty much everyone else in some way except Scout with more with weapons with larger ammo pools. So, the thing is, I realised this because yesterday me and Tom were playing, like after you stopped playing, and I actually used the satchel charge, and I killed like, and this is not an exaggeration, 80 to 100 glyphids in one thing. Like they were all literally smothered the entire walls of like a semi-open like cave, and my satchel hit all of them. That is basically what Fat Boy is. Fat Boys are basically just satchel charges with lingering radiation. Yeah.
Like. You get what, 4 of them, right?
You can get 5 of them. You can get
5 of them, right? So yeah,
but that's your whole weapon, though. That's your whole secondary weapon.
And what I would see, and considering I don't value satchel charges like at all, really, I don't think that's a useful thing to be doing as a utility. I think as an actual weapon, being able to just annihilate an ungodly horde in an instant, and then any lingering ones still being done. It's
not only the speed at which that is done, but it does help with an element of area lockdown. It's also, it makes the PGL its most flexible against usable against a lot of things, but you're still so limited by the ammo pool. It's not like it does good damage to a Praetorian, like a lot, most of its health, but you can't just use it on every Praetorian you see. In fact, you should never use it on just a single Praetorian. So it has its own ways of limiting how you use it again.
I think that's the thing
And
with
that
the
always
PGL,
comes
which
up
maybe
to me with the
is
PGL.
why you don't like it as much. Is the PGL is probably the secondary that you would most not use, if you know what I mean. Like, it's the one that you would hold in your pocket for the longest and then whip it out when you need it most. Like, you'd only whip it out with hyperpropellant if there's like, you know, a big weak point heavy target like Spitballer, Oppressor, Praetorian, all that jazz, right? Corlock, which would be very nice if you just bump into a boss like that with hyperpropellant. But in there, and then you know, the fire one is only, I mean, it's more usable because you'll actually have ammo and have fire, but you know, that's like hordes, right? You got to have a large group of enemies grouped up.
Even
which
then,
isn't rare, but
it always leaves behind things like guards, and it doesn't usually feel worth using against groups of spawners.
That's basically what your primaries are for, though. Your primaries are for those, the lingerers. And same with your turrets and grenades, or well, shredders mainly. But yeah, but then obviously the Fat Boy is definitely something that, like, it's if you see an ungodly horde with a wide range of enemies, and or you're about to get like fucking, you know, ambushed or something, and you just need to save everyone quickly, and hopefully not hit them with it, but you know, like a bit of distance. Fat Boy is for that stuff, and it's just, yeah, it feels less of a secondary weapon and more of just a backup weapon, which I know that's kind of what secondaries are, but like it's like a just in case this thing occurs, I have this. And I suppose that's a bad thing. I think that's your issue with it.
Position because it isn't more flexible. If it was more flexible, then it wouldn't feel that way. And it's not like that type of weapon shouldn't exist in the game, but I think some of the limitations aren't. Some of the limitations, I guess they're not even necessarily arbitrary, because it's a pretty good like grenade launcher. It's not like it doesn't do what it's supposed to do.
You can't deny that, like, it has good range, right? Like, immense single target, immense
you moved
area.
on pretty quickly from that. The flexibility in terrain thing is something that I just didn't get until I did, and now I sort of see that as pretty much its main strength. And it's really good for taking out like groups of enemies pretty much wherever they are, and also fairly quickly. I do take issue with the fear though, because this is actually one thing it's good at. It's not necessarily on all single targets, but the only reason that I'd ever shoot a Praetorian with my grenade launcher is to turn it around. But it's not consistent, and I just wish it had the fear factor upgrade that could actually make that more usable. But it doesn't. I wonder if anyone came up with something like that. It was you, by the way. You did that.
Oh, hooray! I like to start on the deep core, as mentioned. Like, honestly, the main build I like using on the PGL, which is not good, is the area one. Clean sweep, stun, more area, like whatever, like that, and probably the area. What's the tier 2? One of those ones. Maybe I use ammo. I think I might use the ammo on that one, but it is, I like just stunning a huge like fuck ton of enemies, and then like finish them off with like a stunner shotgun. But it was only till recently, and I used to have armor breaking, I think, on it, but then I realized that like I am just worse. This build is just worse unless I put the fire mod on it. So now the fire deals with all the stunned enemies, which still works because they're not going anywhere while they're dying, but it just feels a little less fun leaving it up to fire, which I have to make it viable. And even then, it's obviously not meta, it's just viable. But it's just, I don't know. I think my issue with it comes from the fire mod supremacy. And I think what I mentioned earlier, it has immense single target and immense area, like overclocks. But there's no real in between there. You know what I mean? There's no real leans towards single target, but doesn't invest everything, right?
Yeah, like, exactly. There's no. That's kind of
like Carpet Bomber and like what's the balanced one, right? Like Carpet Bomber just super fucking hard into area, but like sometimes I don't want everything in area. Sometimes, you know, I want a bit of both. Like, you know, but like still actually like so you'd be able to shoot a Praetorian, but you would still do damage to the enemies around him. Is overclock I wouldn't mind having exist for the PGL basically. It's just, I know, yeah. I think that's just some of the things it's missing, which you could definitely do with, is a little bit more nuance in between, and with not such a dominant fire meta on it.
So it could do without having this. 'Cause it's just completely redundant. This is the most redundant overclock. If you use it, I'm not going to be like, oh, you do you, buddy. It's just like, no, you're wrong. You're just wrong. You shouldn't be using it because it reduces your damage so that you can't kill grunts in one hit, even at the center of the blast, and it reduces your radius even. So you should be using Incendiary Compound with it anyway. But then you might as well just use this because you get more damage, or more ammo, I should say, a lot more ammo, and you don't have any of your radius sacrificed. So change this to something else. As in, I think the PGL deserves, considering how extreme these are, it deserves one that gives me more grenades in the clip. Right? I think it's a pretty
so you can like double fire it.
It's a pretty sound idea to just have an extreme ammo overclock where it doesn't actually change anything like in the grand scheme of things, but it just doubles your ammo but halves the damage. I think people would appreciate something like that, and having more shots in the clip as well, even if it's just double, even if it's just 2 in the clip. That'll become broken though because
the fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, but fire. If they're gonna need to touch it, they're kind of gonna have to, unless if they add an overclock to it, which they will at some point. But if they specifically, while making the overclock, like keep in mind the fire mod and like work around it or like some shit like that, like they're gonna have to notice the fire meta in making an overclock for the PGL. So hopefully they. It's bad for the gun that it's as strong as it is, in that it is the only real viable way of using it. And it is what makes like most of its overclocks usable in comparison to the two ridiculously strong in what they want to do overclocks.
Just point out another reason I don't like Fat Boy is that it's really only ever worth using if you're in a full team, because otherwise there's just not enough enemies. Like if you're playing solo, the enemy groups are never too big that like 1 or 2 shots from this can't deal with it. Yeah. That's the problem with Fat Boy. And I know it's not going to change because the Fat Boy is as good as some people claim it is, and as good as it might actually be. It is kind of a joke in that it is just meant to be the mini nuke. It's just meant to be this massive fucking explosion that they just compensate for. So it's not like they can change it to just not increase your area damage and so you have more ammo and just be the radiation, because that's all I want from it. I just want the radiation, but they're not going to make that overclock. Or they're not going to change that or do that at least.
Is also a joke though. So they've got like 2 meme overclocks for the PGL.
250 isn't even meta because of the rocket jumping.
Right, yeah. Well,
I think people gives you a shitload of ammo for some reason.
Yeah, people that use it, like, I think they do eventually start using it for that element to it, but that's never the reason why people pick it. At least why they keep using it.
Well,
and then
it's the best in clutch situations, or like it's best for close range because it reduces the damage a lot, and then the Incendiary Compound reduces the damage again. So you can reasonably shoot it at your feet as long as you're not on like the sliver of health, and it will get you out of a given situation. So it does actually have a lot of use. RG250 is pretty like fantastic really as an overclock, and that's not inherently a problem, but that's not a problem. But Incendiary Compound is maybe a problem.
Weapon strength is like an A, I would say, right? But I just think the way that it obtains it isn't healthy.
No, I agree actually. That's a good point. That's a good way of putting it, I should say. Because I'd say without Incendiary Compound, it's the things that it can't do seems kind of weird to me. Where it's just like, I feel like they should be able to always kill grunts wherever they are in the blast radius. So it comes off a bit strange to me. I think it can, especially on like Hazard 3 and lower, maybe even Hazard 4. But still.
Yeah, but we ignore that. We take it at highest normal rank in this, like, you know, because if it's not viable in all base game hazards, then it's, you know what I mean.
It also without this is just a big problem. Like, once again, right? And this seems like I'm just laying into it, and I am, because without hyper-propellant, the PGL is kind of useless in like every boss fight. Like, Fat Boy can do something, kind of,
Yeah.
but not really. And you have so little ammo, you're not really
but
providing a
I
valuable
think-
function over having the breach cutter or the shard diffractor, which are pretty great,
I
especially
agree with you. I do agree with you. That is the case. That is also the case for a lot of other weapons, right? That's just, again, kind of how the game works, in that you sacrifice versatility for speccing really hard into something. But I think, as mentioned, that is relevant to what I said
I don't
earlier.
think anything
They should just
sacrifices
get
this
a middle
much.
ground. Well,
Most things can be used against the bosses. Like elimination, the PGL is almost useless in elimination. Most weapons can be used against the dreadnoughts to an effect.
so you think that the flamethrower is going to do more against a dreadnought than a PGL with fucking hyperpropellant?
No, it's just hyper-propellant. That's the only way to be useful there.
Exactly, but that is still a thing, right?
It is, Tyler. The PGL engages in the most extreme sacrifices out of any weapon. It is more extreme than any other case.
Which is why I think it should have some more toned down, nuanced ones. I think there should be one that does direct damage, but not hyper-propellant direct damage, just slightly more direct damage with maybe just
Well,
like.
hold on, that guy. Do you remember the modded overclock video that I showed you? He made like a plasma one where it was like a smaller radius, but it was like a lot more damage, but like with no fall off as well. It was like a condensed, powerful explosion. It did like a decent amount of damage and didn't fall off at all. That's actually what compact rounds should probably change to, something like that. Where it's like a very dense, high amount of damage, but not in a big area. Where it's still doing a lot of the single target damage through area damage. That could be a
that would be area plus direct, but the area is smaller, so you're basically just doing a lot of both to a single force grouped up a bunch of enemies. Something like that would be
something that can kill guards in one shot as well. That'd be nice.
Like middle.
Something that can kill guards in one shot, but isn't Fat Boy or hyperpropellant, because you're never going to use hyperpropellant on a guard, obviously. And Fat Boy will take care of guards, but it's the only way to do that in the large groups. So yeah, I like that idea. It might help it a lot actually, but
yeah, no, I think no, I think you can't argue with its strength, though, Harry, which is what you do often. It is very strong at the things you make it to be strong at, but it comes at a price. But what doesn't in this game? And it's.
No, I wouldn't dislike it this much if it wasn't the highest price. It's because it is the highest price to pay. I think I am right in that it sacrifices more than any other weapon when you spec it towards anything.
I think it arguably gives you the most.
Yes,
maybe
actually, not
still
always.
The amount you sacrifice,
Yeah.
but you definitely. Fat Boy is probably one of, if not the strongest overclocks in the game. The amount of damage I imagine you could do in a single instance is, I doubt many other things can beat. Right? Like, it's such a huge amount of damage and a huge amount of area with radiation. Like, it's like area damage, increased area, and status effect. Right? Like, not many other things fuck with stuff that hard. And I don't know, but it comes at a huge price. But I think still, it's not perfect and it's not the best. But I think it will have to sit and be, because it doesn't deserve A.
No, it can't really be.
It hasn't earned its strength in a healthy way. And as Harry would like to fight, its strength isn't even like met with the right amount of like balance to it, whatever, right? Or its strength comes at too big of a cost. But either way, I don't think either of us think it should be an A, so it's going to stay in B. But were you never going to fight for a C, Harry?
No, I would have done at one point. I would have done, but not anymore.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
All right.
It's all good, baby.
Yeah. Still a fun go, but
It's
just
fun.
a bit unhealthy.
It is kind of fun. But the problem is, I always kind of agreed with that, except so many builds aren't. So honestly, for me, so many builds weren't strong enough for them to be fun. Which is why I actually appreciated what they did with RG250. That sort of helped out of that hole. Whereas,
Yeah, because like, most people are like, yay, giant nuke, or yay, I just like one shot a fucking spitballer or like dreadnought or whatever. Like obviously not full health, but you know, doing a huge chunk of damage is always satisfying. But you'd then sit there and be like, it wasn't worth the ammo. Like the fun would be ruined, wouldn't it?
Well, Fat Boy's very easy to not be worth the ammo, especially on solo. Because Hyperpellent is always worth using against the things you're meant to use it against.
Well, if he's in solo, you've got an entire resupply to yourself. You shouldn't have to worry about wasting ammo, really.
But you've also got no one to back you up in like high when you're going against high numbers. A resupply doesn't inherently keep you alive because you know Fat Boy can't be used at close range, and you can run out of ammo quite quickly. You don't have a resupply isn't backup.
Yeah, but a resupply allows you to use Fat Boys in more reasonable times, which would keep the enemy numbers a lot lower. Like, if you can use Fat Boy liberally, like Tom does, you would be able to just kind of exist without issues. Like, the numbers will never get that big if you can use Fat Boys with no real justification behind it.
Solo. Well, it
just ends up being lures.
What?
Maybe it's a lure diff. Maybe that's the key to liking Fat Boy.
Yeah, but if you don't take an explosive grenade, you don't have enough uses of high area damage. Just in your arsenal. That's the problem with that. So,
but you can do if you just use it liberally.
Yeah, I guess if you use it liberally.
If you just use it all the times you would normally, you know,
Fat Boy's not for me. That's what it comes down to. Just really, I can't. It's not for me. And
neither
of them are. Maybe that's what it is. And even if I don't care how objectively good they are. I mean, to be honest, they're gimmicks. I don't think they're actually meant to be objectively good. I don't think so. But either way, they don't sit right with me, and that's always going to affect my view of the PGL, especially considering how popular those overclocks are. So, sorry guys. At the same time, we agree on where it's meant to be, so
yeah, because I think its alien strength just doesn't really deserve it. Same as why the M1000's down in C.
It's the most unhealthy way of attaining strength in that instance.
Yeah. It's just a mod
you have to use steroids, otherwise you're just the weakest link.
Yeah, it's a mod that carries it in the regards that it should just already do. Is basically the thing, I think, which then forces all the builds to be pretty similar, plus completely irrelevant overclock in it as well. And yeah, it's just not perfect, but it could be maybe just a little bit of touching up. But then it really seemed to do little bits of touching up. He likes to just go whole hog into something.
Well, there's always no, they do. It's hard for me to remember specific instances because it's always smaller stuff. But it's never just the one big rework. That's not the only bit of weapon balancing.
Yeah, but I'm not sure a little something would fix the thing, especially for you. But like for me, you'd either have to like severely reduce the strength of the fire mod, and like just buff the gun normally. Like the fire mod would have to like do like, I don't know, well, it's currently like 50% of the damage, right? Bring it down to like 33% or some shit, maybe 25%, but increase the overall damage of the gun.
Yeah, it makes you actually have to take damage mods as well to help incendiary compound, instead of just being able to take all ammo and incendiary compounds and not suffer at all.
Instead of incendiary compound like being your build, you then have to build yourself for incendiary compound. That's a more healthy way of going about it, I think. Especially since it's just a mod, right? If it was an overclock, sure, do what the fuck you want, man. But it's just a mod, and it's such a strong part of it. But yeah. All right. I think we can move on. How long was that? Because if it was an hour, then oh shit.
No, that wasn't an hour. Good lord. It was 2.
Oh, right.
No.
Oh no.
Imagine. Oh god, I hope that wasn't visible.
How time flies when you have to defend something you don't particularly like.
How time flies when you have to shit on something you kind of don't mind.
Yeah.
Not really.
All right.
Oh, how the time
Now.
flies when you're wait, no, that's pit bulls, isn't it? I don't know what bulldogs do. They beat up children.
They're like cookie jars, aren't they? No, they give you car deals. Car set. What's it? What was that actually? The bulldog, who had a comedian that got in a car crash.
Oh my god, what are you talking? Oh yes. Are you talking about him?
Yeah.
I don't remember his name. Something to do with
It's car
Churchill.
insurance. Because I think that was the joke. Is that it was a car insurance bulldog thing, and then the guy that the comedian was the face of it got in a car crash because he was like drunk driving or something. So it was like a whole thing. Point is, that's what bulldogs are. They're drunk driving. You get hit by a drunk driver, and it's like the bulldog heavy revolver.
It's like, how can they make driving even more fun? And then it's like the same as like alcohol. It's like volatile bullets. It's like.
Yeah, the bulldog. I'm gonna say I don't like it.
I don't. Yeah, I thought you didn't. I kind of knew that in a way.
Yeah, I've never gotten along with a bulldog. I don't really like any of its build. I don't like what it does. But I can't really turn down the fact that it is just good as hell. Like, it's just a solid weapon in basically all regards. It has a wide range of builds that are all fairly viable.
It's
and it's a pretty interesting one.
Yeah, it's interesting because it has a very wide range of builds. You can use it in a lot of different ways. It actually like has a lot of overclocks that do like a very similar thing, but actually feel distinct from each other. Also having some that feel that do different things and feel once again feel very distinct. And yet it always comes across as a sidearm, and I think that's a very actually good thing that they've done, where it doesn't feel like this ridiculous. It doesn't feel like a primary weapon. It's very much so a secondary weapon, yet it still engages in a similar level of variety and like usability as the highest tier weapons. But it's still a sidearm, which I think is exactly the position that it should take. That's how all sidearms should come across.
Yeah, you've got to acknowledge in this game that while it's more often than not, the secondaries are going to be weaker damage output-wise than the primaries, they still are. They get about as much, if not completely equal, but maybe more sometimes, attention than the primaries, and have a just as wide a range of options and like strengths and weaknesses and stuff. Like, they are by no means secondary weapons to, I think, Ghost Ship. They care just as much about them as the primaries. Which Gen 3 definitely proves, but we'll get to that in a couple of weeks.
I think, you can always one-shot grunts in the face. This is one of the weapons that most rewards also just being accurate as well.
Yeah, which
it's
is
not always
another reason why
100% necessary.
Well,
yeah, I mean, that's...
I missed most of my shots, so like, what's it? It's not jumbo. What's it? Elephant rounds, right? The
elephant rounds, yeah.
It's just, and that's, I think Overclocked's a pretty easy way of aspiring to builds, but like, if we look at the Overclocked selection, it's pretty cut and dry and all pretty strong, right? I can't actually think of chain hit. I don't think people like, but it ain't bad, right?
I don't hate chain hit. If you don't mind how the bulldog is normally, and you just want to use it to pick things off, you should still probably be using 6-shooter. But
maybe
chain hit's fine because you can hit more than one thing with it.
Yeah. So effectively doubling your damage, but
not effectively. If it was 100% chance, then I'd say effectively, but it's not.
I guess
100% chance.
Bit weird that it's not 100% chance.
It is a bit weird. I think in the context of the bulldog,
aren't other things do that? Like, don't other things have 100% like ricochet
I
off
don't
stuff?
think anything actually does.
No.
No.
I always thought anything with ricochet was like guaranteed.
No.
Especially since it's a weak point one, right? If you hit the weak point, you've earned it.
I guess there's a case of
75 is such a high chance. Like,
yeah,
you're
I
gonna
feel
feel
like
a lot weirder when
this
you
is what
don't
I think,
hit it.
because the bulldog is not a massive ammo pool. and it's also you do have to hit weak points. Obviously, it encourages hitting weak points like constantly, but it doesn't mean just because it encourages it doesn't mean you're better at hitting them with it.
Yeah.
So it should be chain hit should reward you. It should be 100%, I think, for sure.
Yeah. Or like maybe it should do what it says, and it's like a chain hit where if you hit one and it goes off and hits another enemy, and if it hits that weak point on that, it goes down to like 50%, and if it hits a weak point on that one, it goes down to like 25%.
Well,
some
I
shit
like the
like
idea of it doing that, but without it having to hit weak points from the ricochets, because I don't think that could ever really happen. The chance of that happening are so ridiculously low. If the initial one you have to hit a weak point, sure, but then it would just have like a slowly, like quickly decreasing chances of more ricochets. That would, I think, bullet hell could do with that. By the way,
maybe, but. Yeah, some people actually like bullet hell, but that's not the point. My point is, other than chain hit, I think people generally, I mean, 6-shooter, as you mentioned, I think that is 6-shooter is like if you like the base gun, just pick that, right? I mean, that's kind of
yep.
Like that's just
better.
like,
I think
you just really use it more.
Spread. Yeah, a lot of people like 6-shooter actually. I respect 6-shooter. I think it's not my go-to though, but that's the point. It actually has a lot of overclocks that are used. Like, I think that this isn't specifically single target, as in some people use 6-shooter for explosive rounds. It's also probably the best for super blow-through rounds if you just want to use it to cleave through sort of bigger groups. You can, kind of. 6-shooter is probably quite a flexible one, is what I'm saying. But then you sort of have the 3 that are for single target damage, but all in different ways. This one is for single target damage, but you would like how it is normally. That's actually what that is, if we're being honest. Apparently the average is 1.375. That's nice. Yes, that's what homebrew powder is for. And then elephant rounds is just if you want to turn it into a pocket sniper. And it works, by the way. This is one of those ones that just goes for it, by the way. I respect elephant rounds a lot, because it really just does it. It's just like, fuck it, double your damage. And it doesn't actually half your ammo, by the way. It's just a flat -12. You can override it. You're not actually always at half ammo compared to other builds. But it also doubles your damage. So, I respect elephant rounds for just doing that. And also not necessarily making that feel overpowered. But then, we're not going to touch that for just a moment. Magic bullets is
why I'm putting Bulldog in A. I think that, and that's just to get that way, because magic bullets, while not in face value being strong, is right. Like it just provides such an interesting, strong build to the Bulldog, and I find that inherently A-worthy, in my opinion. And you're going to get into what it is, obviously, but it's I respect magic bullets because it seems like it's kind of just off to the side, like it's just some kind of goofy overclock, but it's off to the side because you do have to use it in a very particular way. But it kind of just rewards you if you can figure that out, if you understand what you're meant to do with it. It's like, oh, now you've got it, and now you understand that it's actually worth using. It's not. Which maybe for the sake of the audience, just do the build, right? Ta-da! I mean, realistically, right,
Magic bullets
tier 5 and tier 3
explosive rounds. That's the whole point.
Tier 5 and tier 3 is like the only things you actually need on it, but
yeah, but there's no reason to not.
Anything else,
you shouldn't be
right?
taking anything other than ammo.
Yeah.
That's also. I want to point out one thing about the Bulldog that's kind of weird. It's almost never worth taking these damage mods. They're both only +10. Yeah, that's a bit of an issue. The only time it's worth doing is actually with volatile bullets. But I'd say like a middle ground is actually feels the best to me when it comes to the damage and the ammo.
Yeah, because the +10 gets so much more with volatile bullets.
A lot more out of it. Yeah. Which
obviously, while not being a flat increase as like elephant rounds, with the minigun, which has so many set on fire options, and even the hurricane also
it's not completely restricted. And you still have incendiary grenades as well. So
incendiary grenades. Basically, it is so easy to set things on fire as as Gunner. By the way, literally easier than Driller. As just like, Gunner is far more of a fire guy than Driller, the fucking flamethrower dude.
Well, he's got the flamethrower, but it is still. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense, but it is still just one weapon.
I know, but that was literally his only one weapon back in the time.
Back in the
you
day,
would assume that would have kept it up, but no.
He's the elemental guy, not necessarily the fire guy. But volatile bullets is also for single target damage, but it also plays into just the idea of combos, and it just results in massive damage done in a very satisfying. Well, it basically just makes you feel like a badass, and it's also a ridiculous amount of damage.
Like the build that you've currently accidentally made. Have you tried that? Where you because you also get a buff. With area damage.
Yeah, it does. It works, but it doesn't feel good because it's so small. It doesn't really work because also all those enemies are going to die anyway from the fire. Yeah. It doesn't really work. You take. This is probably what I would do, and you could just pick between these. Probably accuracy.
You still put the neurotoxin on.
That's such a good upgrade, by the way. I don't think this is like the same level as Incendiary Compound necessarily. It just because it doesn't. This isn't really a backbone. It's just something that's very hard to not.
What's the other tier 5? Is it just like? Alright. So yeah, it is hard. Like if you're accurate enough, there's no reason not to always have neurotoxin, right? It doesn't make or break a build other than the obviously the ricochet one.
It makes that one. It makes magic bullets, but it just substantiates everything else. Makes it feel a lot better. Because not only do you have your solid single target damage, you also deal a good amount of damage over time. It feels like you feel a bit more like an assassin. I don't know if that's really right.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Neurotoxin it is a good upgrade too. It's just outright good, but it just makes all your builds feel better as well.
And I feel like it
makes it more forgiving, by the way. That's the whole point of neurotoxin. It means you don't always have to hit weak points to get good use out of the bulldog, because neurotoxin is such a good status effect.
Which is what those, I don't know. Yeah, I think if the tier 5 just had a bit better competition, it wouldn't be like the must pick, which it kind of is now. Because there's no reason not to. But if there was just some more competition, it would be pretty healthy. Yeah. And the other thing doesn't really do anything more to the gun if you never miss, right? Right. Yeah. Or don't move much while firing it. But it is. I don't know. Yeah. The revolver is just a very solid gun. Just very solid, and it's why I think it should be an A.
I don't think there's
it's got very simple, strong builds. It has a complex, strong build, like a funky one, and all of its other builds that aren't like meta are still like fine.
Well, I suppose the weird thing about the Bulldog is if it was a primary, and you take the same sort of strengths that it has translated to what a primary version of it might look like, it would probably be an S tier weapon. So. And it's not that I think it should be an S tier, but I think we need to almost.
Would it though?
I feel like we need to figure out why we're not putting an S tier, basically.
Because I don't think it is S tier.
No, because you look at these two. These two are very.
None of its builds.
It's not forgiving. Isn't even the right word. These are just always usable. They're not necessarily rewarding. I guess it's the precision thing where the Bulldog relies.
That's the thing. This is you could miss and still gain value, but obviously, Bulldog you need to hit unless magic bullets. But like even then, its builds are very strong. Obviously, volatile bullets with the minigun is fucking nutty, right? It's like one of the best things you could do. But like, I don't know, it's not quite S in my mind. And maybe that is an issue, and maybe that will be something we'll notice once we've done all this.
It's not quite
nothing
perfect.
Can quite get S in secondary.
I think perhaps this tier is a little bit weird, where explosive rounds really only good with one overclock, and I don't ever feel like using that. And also, this
super blow through. There's no real point if you use magic for AOE, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're using an AOE build, you want super blow through. But if you're not using, point is, blow through doesn't make much sense.
And also this is like much better than this, and also the damage monster usually never worth taking, but it still has a very good number of builds. It's and
it's its mod selection ain't bad either, right? I don't think it's fine. It is very good. It's a solid A, and I think we got to look what else is an A, right? Those are all good. Like, it is in the perfectly fine category of a gun with a very good range of ways of using it, and all of those things kind of being good and interesting and fun to use and all that stuff. It is, definitely a better than fine weapon. Just I can't see it in S. It's just not quite that. But it's still very, very cool guy, and definitely belongs in A.
Absolutely.
What, spoilers, might not go in A, is the Sabata.
Yeah.
The issue is, I've actually been using the Sabata a little bit recently. I know I stream, I mentioned that, I've been using just the Sabata full damage with like the fire thing and the flamethrower. And it actually does an output a fairly solid amount of damage. But, I don't know, it's just, the Sabata has such a wide, weird range of overclocks. And such a wide, weird range of it. Like, it is such a cool...
weird.
Yeah, like, it is...
Still very boring.
It is... I genuinely believe that the Sabata's biggest fault isn't any build, isn't anything in that particular. It is the fact that it is designed to be a 9mm pistol. Like, it's just a pistol. And I think that decision doomed the Sabata to never be that good. It was never going to be that nice to use. It was never going to be that fun. It was never going to be interesting. It was never going to be anything worthy of being in the game at this point in time, right? Like, I stand full by that Sabata, it would never come to existing nowadays. Like, they would never add a weapon as boring as the Sabata. It was just an obligatory, what pistol can we come up with? Oh, right, a generic fucking 9mm from like COD, right? That's what the Sabata is. And I cannot in good faith, especially since its builds aren't amazing either, but I don't think it's because they can't be. It's because, well, I don't think it's because they're just not. I think it's just because they can't. They can't be good because the Sabata will never be able to be good. It is physically incapable of being anything worth using. And in all fairness, its mod selection doesn't help. It's just, I don't know. I think the Sabata could use an overhaul. And I mean that. I think they need to, like, turn it into a different type of gun.
I actually agree with that now. Because to me, whenever you said that, it almost came across to you just like how boring it was. But I've realised it is doomed by its concept, in a way. Especially when compared with its competitors. I think that's almost where the biggest problem comes up. Almost particularly the wave cooker, but realistically it is both of them, just being some of the most... First of all, 4 tiers with 3 mods in them is quite a lot. Let's point that out on the EPC. It's just these are some of the most some have just some of the most depthful guns, and also some of the most interesting in concept and in use, and in a number of different ways you can use them. The build depth is just ridiculous. And
I want to use this as well because
it doesn't deserve to be that simple. It doesn't.
Sabata's ideal, right, is a bit of a pea shooter. Like, it's not, it does actually can do good damage per shot, but it's really supposed to have more ammo, right? That's the point. It's most of its damage gets done in a volume of ammo. And I think being that what it is, in that it does alright damage, but it's mainly stored in the ammo, the wave cooker is more that, right? Like, the wave cooker is a fucking pea shooter.
It's not, I wouldn't call this like massive ammo pool. The EPC isn't far off. But
EPC you can run out of ammo pretty hard.
And the wave cooker is big ammo.
Yeah, a big ammo pool with no damage being done with each shot. But wave cooker realizes that and then does other things. The Sabata just continues to be nothing other than a somewhat large ammo pool with somewhat okay ammo. So that's what with damage rather. It is middling damage with middling ammo with middling mods, and its overclocks try. It's overclocked.
It has it's all in the unstables, and
I saw a Reddit post recently that really put it accurately.
This is tier 5, basically.
They are gimmicks so fucking
Well, I just want
hard,
to point
man.
out, Tyler, like this. First of all, tier ones don't actually. They do often get like 3 different mods. I just say this tier one's pretty redundant. I think they're all pretty equal. I guess redundant is the right word. I guess that's good if they're all
Isn't
fairly
there
equal.
that
But what I mean is
accuracy-
that I feel that the unstables are actually the Sabatas tier 5, and it's still missing its
On-
overclocks. And it's still...
I'm on a very genuine note. Like, I'm trying to think of like things that Sabata needs to be more like usable. Like, because if we're in this universe of it needs to be a different gun to be like interesting, I genuinely think that if you want to keep the Sabata design, which I think they would, just change how it works and put the auto fire in the default gun as an alternate firing mode, I think, and like make it obviously not as impossible to use and like longer range. But I think maybe it's just something along the lines of it's a fully automatic pistol with then an alternate like accurate alternate firing mode, or like you can switch between. Something like that might be more reasonable and more interesting. But it is just the fact that, like, yeah, you need to make one of the overclocks a default part of the gun for it to start being like interesting to use in any
Well, I
shape or
think
form.
I would propose immediately, because obviously the way you could delve into alternate firing modes in tier 4, and the experimental plasma charger has charge shots. So this has it built in. This has 2 that you can choose from. I would actually follow this, and I would, in a rework, I would have one of the tiers, possibly tier 4, be dedicated to either you can make its alternate firing mode that you switch it to, so you would still be semi-automatic, but you can switch it to either automatic or burst. Wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah.
It's its own tier. This is in the context of a rework where that would be okay to have its own tier.
I was thinking, I don't know, yeah. I was thinking maybe the Sabata you could, it could be like, it's like a 5-shot single shot, right? Like a charge shot, basically, but it won't be. It would just be like every shot you do, it's like a pinpoint accurate shot, but it like does like 5 ammo and it'll do like a good amount of damage, some shit like that.
Well,
Like
shotgun,
the
honestly, a
Sabata,
salvo module style overclock wouldn't be outplaced. I mean, I don't like bringing this thing up. Halo 4 had a weapon called the bolt shot, which is like this 4-runner pistol, and it was just semi-automatic, but if you charged it, it would shoot 5 shots in one, and they would have like it would be like a shotgun thing
that
with
wouldn't be
limited
bad,
range.
yeah. But yeah, the
Teams also has
Sabata,
that where they can use shotgun rounds in their pistols.
yeah. Well, honestly, yeah. Sabata just needs to be more interesting. Because I do think it is weak still, but I don't think it was ever going to be more than weak, right? Let's first like just because you need to kind of comparison it with the other weapons, right? The Sabata best collaboration with like a primary or like any bit of equipment is that fire tier 5 mod.
Yeah,
That is the best thing in working together, which is it's fine, right? It will do, but compare it to the other weapons, and the Wave Cooker combines with all 3, right? You can choose between all 3. EPC, works well with cryo temperature shock. It works well with puddles, setting them on fire. And while it doesn't technically work with the flamethrower, if your goal is to set everything on fire, the EPC gives you a long range option for that. And while all of those are just the fire mod, I will admit, and so maybe EPC is a bit of a fire mod problem. I wouldn't agree with that, but I'll leave it there.
there's enough people. I think containment field is popular enough. It's not a big problem. I don't think.
But like, I even then though, the EPC can reliably work with 2, and the Sabata has just the flamethrower. That's it. The Sabata is the only one that it works better with. And I would argue it's not even an interesting way other than the other ones. You know, temperature shock, igniting puddles, fucking making neurotoxin clouds in the air. The Sabata just does more damage against fucking, on fire enemies. And not even like a lot. I mean, it's not a bad amount, don't get me wrong, actually. 50% more, it is noticeable. You actually do start doing more damage with full damage mods. But it's just boring. It's so fucking boring.
It's a problem that it's boring, but it really is meant to be.
Exactly.
Because the other 2 aren't. It
But
really
that's
is
not
meant
a
to be.
good justification. It just isn't, is it? Like,
but it sounds ridiculous, but that is how it's meant to distinguish itself. By being the very simple one. That's just... I'm not saying I like that. I'm just saying that's how it is, and that's why it's still just a boring pistol.
Sure, but then its strength doesn't match the simplicity.
No, it
you would
doesn't.
expect a simple gun to be simply strong. but it ain't.
Well, no, I've got a
Damn
good
right.
idea, really. I think because the problem, it does circle around to its concept, and the concept is that it's the ballistics one. And ballistics just referring to just gunpowder with bullets. It's the only one that uses bullets. It's the only weapon the driller has that is just bullets as well. And you know
true,
what?
yeah.
I think there is a problem there, and we can change it. We can still keep it pretty close to the original concept, but people want a nail gun. And it could still be pretty similar in size. You could still build it off the original Sabata model. It could look like very similar. Maybe make it a bit bigger. Its base model would have more like construction colours in it. It'd be some streaks of yellow. But I think nail gun is a direction you got to take Sabata if you're going to change it big. But still stay pretty close to what it's meant to represent in Driller's arsenal.
And I would argue that with that, you would then push up tranquilizer rounds into a mod, right? You would push up the nails pin enemies down, right?
Yeah,
it's like a mod.
You'd also have this base maybe you'd have this possibly built in like bleed mechanic. I don't know, just to make it stand out, where you could stack.
It'd be
quite weak, but you could stack a damage over time with the nails potentially. But you know,
honestly,
just making a nail gun just makes it close, but still unique.
If you were to make it a nail gun, you'd push up trank and fully automatic as alternate firing modes, like the wave cooker. And I know you want to keep it simple, but I would argue that they're pretty simple, right? Just being either automatic or your self-firing shots are just stronger. But yeah, I don't think that should be a mod. I think the explosive, first of all, embedded detonators, as far as I'm concerned, is the only viable build for the Sabata. You may disagree with that, audience. I think Harry, I think you'd agree, right?
Yeah,
it's not even strong. It's just viable, right? Like it's just the only way that you actually get any good amount of damage and any good amount of utility from it. Like it taking down targets like as quick as it can is valuable, but with the other things it's just not. Like the fully automatic I found fun, and then I realized that it's only usable close range, and then I realized wait a minute, why am I using the Sabata close range? Like, what the fuck? That's what my primaries are for. And now I have nothing long range, and I'm fucked. Now an acid spitter is going to tear me to pieces because that's shitty fucking unstable. Which might just be a skill diff. I can't control the recoil and however, but it's still quite a strong one. But then, yeah, tranquilizers are fine, but they're also just a gimmick, right? They doesn't make a gun any stronger, does it? It just adds what used to be the strongest stun effect to the game, but now that's not even the case. And now it's just add a strong stun, which I do think, shouldn't be part of the base gun. Should be an option.
It's weird that it doesn't have a stun. It doesn't quite work. It's just like you really need to be precise with it again. Like with the Bulldog, but in this case it's not really rewarding enough, especially when you consider these two don't rely on the weak points at all. In fact, this guy is like
doesn't even know what
weak points are. It has
makes
to make
its
them
own
itself.
weak points.
Yeah.
That
it can pop as well. That it can damage, and everything else can. Like it makes weak points that are better weak points because you don't need ballistics to pop them. You don't need bullets to pop them.
You can put them fucking anywhere.
And EPC just doesn't even know
doesn't
what
really give a shit.
is. And
not that I think it's viable, but it is tier 5 mod literally ignores like armor as well. Like those two. Yeah, I mean that's what it says it does, right? That's its description. It's like trust me, this is usable. It can ignore armor.
Plasma Splash might be fine if it wasn't like an overclock for some reason. It doesn't make sense that it exchanges. A tier 5 mod can add 10 area damage. That's not.
I think once again, it's just very weird that they that they even bothered adding it. But yeah, we'll get to that. But yeah, no, the Sabata, I think the main issue with it is so fucking boring, which is why I think Harry is right. Just remodel it slightly, and if anything, don't bother. Just change it to where the bullets and the mag are now just nails, right?
It could
just
also
make it nails.
I did think of like making that like unique in some way at base level, and we have pierce damage now, like on the crossbow. I think you could possibly use something where it could just be not as bad against armor as normal bullets are.
That would make sense as well. It would then because that's the thing though, is Driller as a whole doesn't give a fuck about armor.
Yeah,
except
this is the only
Sabata.
weapon that does. It's also the only weapon. It's the only weapon that is affected by armor in a big way. Obviously, you can't shoot through armor with the DPC, but that's it. And also, it not only is armor a problem for it, it also you need to hit weak points with it as well for it to do any reasonable damage. So yeah, it is an outdated weapon. We sort of always thought this, but when you really break it down, it is very much outdated in what the overwhelming majority of drillers' weapons are. It just doesn't make sense anymore. It just
I don't think there's people will somehow manage to justify it, if that. But
no, hold on, I'm doing that because obviously.
I know, but like on a very serious note though, because I think if F means anything, it means overhaul, right? It means this gun is fundamentally wrong, and I think the Sabata is that
broken because so many people like it, but I would wonder how many people would be opposed to our ideas though.
Our ideas,
I don't think it should be anyone.
First of all, switching it to that would immediately everyone would just find that better, right? Because everyone wants that as a
it's just nail gun as like a driller secondary.
It's just I don't get it. Get it? Like how people could defend the Sabata.
Yeah. Also, I think a nail gun just would feel so at home with driller for some reason, you know?
Yeah, because I didn't realize it until you mentioned it, but yeah, the fact that he has a pistol that shoots bullets is kind of weird. But yeah, if you could just like spray down, and like I would make the argument that it should just become fully automatic. Personally, maybe a mod as mentioned. Like a mod tier would be either make it fully automatic or make your single fire shots have like really strong stun to them, right? That would be a choice, I think. But yeah, being able to spray down a group of fuckers with like nails would be pretty cool.
Nails would allow for it would just be more. There'd just be more you could do with that. I think for driller, that would make a lot of sense. Like,
yeah, honestly.
And the reason I'm not going to create another tier, I don't actually think anything else is going to end up there. If I'm being honest.
I forgot that. I thought it was there for some reason, but no,
right.
It genuinely, and I'm gonna. It needs to be redesigned. That's where the D comes from. It is legitimately. There isn't a good argument for it because let's be realistic, right? It's a simple weapon, right? Like that's what it is. There's plenty of other simple weapons that are exceedingly more pleasant to use. The GK2, the assault rifle. So it's an assault rifle. That's literally all it is. Exceedingly more fun than that. Like everything it does is so fucking cool and it's strong and all that jazz, right? Minigun, I wouldn't say it's a simple minigun as far as it goes, but like you know, it's just I don't know, nail gun.
Nail guns.
Yeah. In all fairness, the nail gun would like a nail gun design. It fits exactly into Deep Rock, and arguably, on a very serious note, though, you could adjust the Sabata's look slightly, and it would really fit in.
Like if you just made the clip here,
longer. Yeah,
make the clip longer.
Bring it down to handle size, and then get rid of the little finger guard and bring it down to the bottom of the gun, and then you would have the nail gun. And while they would have to then change all of the preferably, but the skins like a little bit at least wouldn't be preferable for them. I feel like. Yeah, it's just a matter of fact that at this point.
I should say, I don't know how much I truly believe. I mean, I came up with the idea and I do like it. The point is, it's the only weapon where I would agree with that being a good idea.
Yeah,
like, I'm not going to push for it until the end. I'm not going to die on this hill, but it's the only weapon where I would, if they decided to do this, I'd be like, yes, that is a good idea.
Yeah, the Sabata, at a bare minimum level, and I think this is the point I want to get across, the Sabata will always be worse than every other weapon in the game because it was fundamentally designed worse. Its decision was, let's make a boring pistol.
You could at least have its tier 5 actually be free upgrades that all meaningfully interact with the different primaries.
As I mentioned,
give it that.
As I mentioned, literally, the fire does more damage to fire, corrosion does more damage to corrosion, ice does more damage to ice.
Yeah,
that would be the simplistic
that's not far
way
enough for me, but yeah, at least that. Come on.
The most simplistic way of making it at least fit in with the other secondaries and being able to use with like any primary. But no, it doesn't have that because the Sabata fucking sucks. It is the worst gun in the game, and I think we both agree with it.
I think we definitely probably made point to this before. Probably made a similar point where it's like I don't see how you could possibly disagree with us, something like that. people like it, but I have to ask anyone who likes it, how could you disagree that it's the worst weapon?
Yeah, like it is.
How?
Right, you can fight on us on strength because, to be honest with you, it has its moments. As mentioned, fucking embedded data is explosive reload is viable in higher ranks. It does good damage as long as you only put ammo on it, because the actual damage of the gun doesn't change anything on that. The actual damage it does reloading. It then has pretty good damage for pretty good ammo efficiency, but anything other than that is not worth bringing. It's just miserable to use. It's not that good. Not that good damage output in like any reasonable amount of time, and like the ammo and damage is like, I guess it's okay, but it just takes so long to get it all out there.
Also, nails would be retrievable. To point that out.
Maybe like quickly, like the gun would have like a magnet attached to the bottom of it. If you walk over it, it will just like automatically reattached. Like you shouldn't have to be able to pick up each nail. Like just go like near it and it will like kind of like whoop, and it will like stick back into the gun. Yeah, I don't know. It's just it's not fun. It's just not fun. It is objectively the least fun weapon in the game. It's such a pathetic waste of everyone's time shooting it. It's just like a bang, 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 and you've just killed like a grunt. Yeah, you just and bang is a bit much. Just like ping, 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 ping. You kill a grunt guard now, so that's 2 enemies dead. You've used like your entire clip. So you're reloading now, and you're fucking like. In all fairness, you could get a pretty big clip size on it. I'll compliment it for that, but you don't really need it most of the time.
Would you call that a big clip size?
Yeah, no, yeah, but that's automatic. For a single fire, I think it has the biggest clip size, and that's a claim that I don't think I can support.
Does it?
For a single fire, I think it has the biggest clip size.
You might be right, actually. I think you're actually right, Tyler. Well, one. No, sorry.
I know it certainly has more than the coil gun.
I mean, it's like a single fire. Well, the coil gun,
and it's still the case though. In all fairness,
the
sludge pump gets like 25, right? The Sparrow can get like 30 something.
20 to 40. You get 40 on the sludge pump. You get 30 on the supporter? That's maximum clip size. 27.
Oh.
What?
Then I don't know what I was thinking. Hold on, what about the automatic fire? What does that do? Does that touch clip size?
Yeah, I think
it should in some way, right?
No, it doesn't actually.
Oh. I thought it would have, considering it's now automatic. Never mind then. I was wrong. It doesn't have any merits. Goodbye, Sabata. You will not be missed.
No.
Seriously, if they changed it to the nail gun, it wouldn't change that dramatically either. So nobody will care. It will be an objective upgrade. And as mentioned, that's even going a bit further than it's needed. If you just changed how it shoots slightly and changed its mod slightly to just be more interesting, like stop trying to make it interesting with overclocks. Stop trying to retrospectively make it more interesting, because it hasn't worked and it won't ever work. Just make it more interesting base.
Make it base.
Yeah.
Make it shoot red pills.
Because honestly, I think that's what they tried doing though, really, wasn't it? Like, its overclocks, like its unstable overclocks are fucking wild, right? It changes it to an automatic pistol. And like, and the strongest stun in the game as well, you know, that not anymore, obviously. But like, you know, they really tried to make it interesting when they added overclocks. And they can't, because it's generically built to be boring as fuck, and I think they realised that a bit too late.
How many interesting upgrades does Sabata have?
Upgrades?
How many interesting things does it have?
Oh, well,
just even the slightest amount. Just because I would say slightly, only because it's just kind of nonsense. Doesn't actually do a lot. But
it's only because it's not. It's convoluted, right? In the like how it actually works.
2, 3.
Yeah.
4?
And it doesn't have. It's just I don't know. Yeah, it's not pleasant. It's not. Yeah, you all that. You're just like
That doesn't
fucking
make
every
it
other one. But yeah, no. Fuck for Sabata. It is legitimately the worst gun in the game, and I feel like even if you disagree with most of our opinions, you have to agree with that. If only because I imagine you other guns are probably higher up in your list, right? like you can't. I
want to talk to someone who puts Sabata in S. S for Sabata.
I don't know what. I don't know. There's no universe, no like
Someone would have done
metric
it.
system. There's no system in place that would allow the Sabata to be an S. Objectively. Unless it's like unstable number, like the amount of unstable overclocks they have, then it could be an S. But like that's about it. But yeah, no, fuck the Sabata. Worst gun in the game.
Fuck the Sabata.
Moving on.
Fuck you.
To something
and fuck
not
off.
much better.
I think it's a fair bit better. I'm going to be honest with you, mate.
I'm not.
The broomstick.
The boomstick is only slightly better than the Sabata because everyone just likes double barrels more than simple ass pistols, which is completely reasonable. But yeah,
punch.
it's
got good reload animation. Got some good sound effects.
Because it's a double barrel, so they made it cool. That's kind of how it works. And that's all it has about it. Moving on. No.
Moving on. All right, I guess it's over then.
Yeah. Bring it down to D. Come on. No, I don't think we can put it in D. But I think we both know it's going to go where it's going to go. And the reason why you haven't put it down is, are you going to disagree with me on this?
I don't know.
Hey, are we going to have a fight?
Well, we're not going to move it down yet.
All right.
We're going to talk about this. All right? We're going to talk about this, okay? Okay?
All right.
Okay. Right.
Let's have a civilized discussion about the boomstick.
Let's try.
This is the thing as well. Like, we really do need someone that. I mean, well, Tom is that person who is just disagrees with us for no good reason, but he's completely unqualified, so that can't be a thing. But the boomstick is a shotgun, therefore its range ain't the best. That's a good start, right?
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about range with
That's because
actually any of them apart from the PGL. You just forgot.
Yeah. Well, it was just it's just a juicer, and we didn't need juice for the other ones. But the boomstick is close range exclusive.
Definitively.
Yeah, you ain't going to be using that in any significant range, which, in all fairness, is a bit of a theme for his, was a theme for a secondary. So Zukov, you didn't want to use it at that long range either. But, now the Bolt Sharks is a bit more of a longer option. So, I don't know. Yeah, boomstick, definitely, I guess, let's get this out of the way, has a bit of the same issue as, I've forgotten what it is now, the PGL. In that its fire tier 5 is quite preferred. I don't actually think it's as bad though. But it's I'm gonna immediately disagree. I think it's worse. Well, you think the broomstick relies even more on it?
I think it does. I don't think there's any reason to not use it ever.
Honestly,
not ever.
I realise now that is entirely true because you can actually not use the fire one with Fat Boy, but there isn't an overclock. Like, let's have a look. There isn't an overclock that doesn't use white phosphorus to be viable, right?
I mean, fear is always viable, but
not against the fire.
Oh shit!
Right?
Yeah, whatever.
All right,
where were we?
We were looking at the things that the phosphorus isn't the best thing for, because as far as I'm aware, jumbo shells it is, shape shells it is, compact things, is that the one left? Stuffed shells it is.
Oh yeah, stuffed shells is fantastic.
Yeah, and obviously
compact
special powder.
Probably the least Because compact shells
Compact
is the one that
shells-
you build. Compact shells, the only. I mean, it's good just because it's just ammo, but the main reason to use compact shells is actually to build for blast wave, therefore crowd control, which means maybe fear is a good idea. Maybe, but still.
Yeah. The other one, the fast one, no real. I mean,
Well,
it's double
we'll get to
fail.
that.
I didn't realize what it
we'll
was.
get to these two because I'm gonna have
Well,
issues
quickly,
with
special
both.
powder is also white phosphorus. It's also the best thing to use, so you can actually use it as a shotgun.
Yeah, I mean, fear is actually useless with special powder.
Yeah,
yeah.
But
It's
So, yeah, so basically
in
there's-
my opinion, it's what makes the boomstick the decent casual trash clearer that it is, of just picking off the occasional grunt in slashers and anything around that strength level, because you can just one shot them most of the time if you're using white phosphorus, and I think that's pretty respectable. I guess it's because the other two really aren't very casual weapons. The Zukov's a bit more limited, but they both have a lot of very extreme uses.
yeah, I
Boomstick
think the only
doesn't
exception to
outside
that.
of what.
Well, if you actually have normal bolts on the bolt shark, it definitely fills that purpose. It's like the only thing they'll do, really, if you somehow have them. They
you
would
still
just
have
be used
special
for
bolts.
picking off. Yeah, obviously, yeah, but that's like that's it. But yeah, no, generally, yeah, the broomstick is. I don't know, it's used for something. God knows what it is.
I'm just saying, I think there's a chance that this might actually come down to a lot of the bolt shot covers so much ground that the other two don't need to actually do very much, and I can't really give them, like, you know, I don't know, it feels hard to mark them down just because the boom things that they don't do, because the bolt shock can do so much, where these guys, especially it kind of just does what it does, and it's actually fine at what it does. I guess the point is what it does is kind of obscure, because as it stands, it's not, like, aside from like specific builds, it's not great at single target damage. But it's also not a particularly great crowd clearer. But that's
not
just scout.
bad at it though.
No, but that's
With
it's actually not bad for scout.
Jumbo, it's pretty solid. I mean, it's not exactly what you'd want to be doing against an enemy like that. You know, like you don't really want to be straddling a dreadnought, trying to jumbo shot him in the ass.
Jumbo shots is good for that. There's nothing wrong with that.
You know, he goes, well, I mean, you're just grappling hook away, but if
I'm a
you
jumbo
fuck it
shell.
up,
I'm a jumbo shell man.
Jumbo shell. This was a video I saw. Some guy like properly trying to break down the boomstick. Jumbo shell is like, at least, and this was like a modded ×2 player, right? It's like the best thing for it, for the jury rig boomstick. If you want to use it as a weapon, jumbo shells with white phosphorus is just the best idea. It will kill the most enemies, do the most damage, be the best shotgun that it can be. And that's just kind of the case.
Yeah.
And it kind of does come down to that for me. In the when it comes down to it, the jury rig boomstick is either jumbo shells and it's killing things well, or it's special powder and you don't use it for killing things at all.
Yeah.
That's the boomstick as far as I'm concerned.
I think aside from those ones, it's fine. It's just that it doesn't provide any value outside of those that the other two don't have. The other two have a lot of value in a lot of different areas. The boomstick just has, I think, the least specialties. I think, and that's kind of what scouts secondaries, I think, are supposed to be. Supposed to specialize. At least that's what it's come to be, in my opinion.
Or they're supposed to just like kind of like fuck around.
There's no comboing with the boomstick. The Zukov's combo with a lot, like just
bullets and
conducted bullets, and also just
bullets,
freezing things as well, and things like that. The bolt shot combos with itself, as well as the primaries. Yeah. The boomstick is very singular, but it doesn't actually feel. I think it could do with pairing in some way with the primaries. I guess it has fire. It's a good source of fire, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's a mercy. But that build's probably limiting you in some other way that you wouldn't be limited by if you were using fire bolts, because then you have fantastic crowd clearing. Yeah.
It's, I don't know, I think the boomstick suffers from a little bit from the same thing Sabata has. Just conceptually designed, it's not gonna be that impressive. I mean, it's a double barrel shotgun. The fact they've managed to make it a mobility tool is already pushing it further than it could be, right? And they'd have to do some more extensive measures to make it a little more special. But yeah, as it stands, it's just fuck, man. I can't get on
this
side
tier
of
is very
boosting
weird
argument.
to me. I never know what to pick here. This is
Yeah.
bizarre. I guess blow through is good. Actually, that's the thing. It's not a bad
Blow
tier.
through for
actually.
ignition. That's what
I
it
guess
comes
so,
down
yeah.
to. As far
I
as
think it's
I'm aware.
actually pretty decently balanced here. So is this. Obviously, this isn't. Tier 3. Tier 3 kind of weird. I'd say the stud is probably completely irrelevant. Apart from that, that makes tier 1 and 3 like the same. Just like sort of swapped around a little bit. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird, even though it's not a very weird weapon. Once again, it could have a better. It could have a better mod tree. It could also have a lot better of an overclock selection. If I'm being honest.
Yeah,
This is a problem. Like, this is a problem. It has
Four
four cleans. It has 4 cleans. One of them is this.
Yeah.
Right? The start of that. One of them is this, which is, by the way, not only is double barrel bad,
It is an
not only
official downgrade.
What? What? That's what it comes down to. Why would you ever use double barrel? Sucks. And then you have another clean, which is special powder, which is the main attraction, I guess.
Which, to be honest with you, let's get spicy. Special powder should probably be increased to at least a balanced, maybe an unstable. Because let's be honest, special powder is too strong. It is exceedingly strong.
Special powder's too fun. I don't think it's actually strong. So I literally don't think you need it.
I think Tom would disagree.
I know, but Tom's an
and
idiot.
No, I agree with you. But it is a fact that a lot of scout mains, and Tom is one of them, would literally not be able to use the character if it wasn't for special powder.
That's why. Yeah, but I think I view that not as. I guess it is a problem with special powder, but that's what makes it a problem with the boomstick. In the community's eyes, the boomstick is very singular. In the like the people who use it, it's just special powder. Even though I think it genuinely has a good use of just doing a lot of damage at once. Jumbo shells.
Yeah,
I like jumbo shells.
But that's the thing. It's like there's more to it than special powder. No, there ain't. I mean,
there's not a lot more to it. There isn't. I'll give you that. There isn't a lot more.
It's igniting as many enemies as you can, slash dealing as much damage as you can with jumbo shells. That's literally it. Because jumbo shells ignites better, therefore you use both. And that's literally it. It's special powder or jumbo shells. And like shape shells tries something, right? I'll give it that. It tries giving it some range, but it's not particularly good at it. I mean, it does.
Shells, but it's like
minus 4 max ammo for no more damage. That's the way I see it.
Yeah,
you lose damage from it.
Yeah, I suppose you do. Yeah. I mean, less missing means more damage in the context of something with such a widespread pellets. It's doing something, kind of.
Yeah, it's reducing your max ammo.
It's
That's
not.
what it's doing.
Okay, what? Yeah.
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 Oh shit! No. Shit.
Yeah, it's not that far, but it definitely is a C for. I don't know. Could be better. Let's go with that.
C
it's
means
just
could be better. C means classic.
D means crap because it's a piece of crap.
D means doggy doo-doo, dickhead, dum-dum.
It's like the other ones in that it is good. It is very good with jumbo shells ignition, right? It's perfectly good with that. It's usable with the other things, but it's just worse than jumbo shells ignition. And special powder provides a level of utility that nothing else really compare to, and will take over the gun if you allow it and you learn to rely on it. Well, I guess I don't really learn to rely on it, but yeah, if you end up relying on it. And it is just the fact that those two things are just like, I don't know, just it. That's the boomstick. It's a mobility tool and a single overclock / ability to just deal damage and set things on fire. And I don't know, it's just could be so much better. Like, if they just added some more interesting things, and that's pretty much it. just I don't know, make special powder a little less of a free thing.
It's just
like
I think
maybe
it does have a
increase
really
reload
bad
time on
overclock
special
selection
powder.
too. Like we got 4 cleans. Where's our blast wave overclock? Eh?
Yeah,
That's
well,
it.
the thing is about that
That's
is
the main
people
thing
actually
missing.
really don't like blast wave. And by people, I mean the guy I mentioned earlier. He thinks blast wave is absolutely fucking terrible and there shouldn't even be a mod for it, and it shouldn't be a thing in the game or whatever.
The hell's it
And
about?
I think that. Well, I don't know his name. I've forgotten it.
Where? There was.
You watched some of his videos.
We?
Yeah,
He's a
he was the guy that has like the full of like a bunch of people help him make the videos and like,
Gaming
like, giving-
Existence.
Right.
Not very deep rock-esque channel name, is it? Not all he does, to be fair. But...
None of them are, in all fairness. Ours is probably the closest, and drilling in the name of more so, in all
yeah,
fairness.
it's really in the name of.
But the rest, they don't even have deep profile pictures. Like, I mean, we also don't. But you know what I mean? But it is,
Barrels.
is the boomstick is like the M1000. It's got like one thing that everyone uses, and you can make an argument that it has something else, but it really doesn't. Everything else is just worse than that thing.
Yeah, but I think it's a bit better than in that case, like, in that sense, because the M1000, the problem with Hipster is that it's just taking a lot of ammo. It's just hogging ammo that should be on the base weapon. Not like you can move some of special powder to the base weapon. It's one function. It's one
In
mechanic.
fairness, I mean, the thing is, I was about to say make special powder a mod, but then I realized whatever mod is put in that other against those other mods will never get picked.
White phosphorus. In the same tier as white phosphorus.
Yeah, to be honest,
That'll make some waves. That'll be interesting. I wouldn't care, but I know that people would be very angry.
So you'd be able to either use, like the special powder with like the ammo one, right? Or you could use special powder with like jumbo shells, and that would be interesting because like then you could use it as a good weapon, but every time that you use it to just fly away, you feel like you're wasting a jumbo shell shot.
You are.
But
It would be a
pretty
waste.
funky one.
Yeah.
But it is, yeah, that would be funky. And considering, how many cleans there are, maybe, just throwing some of the cleans, maybe making double barrel mod, something like that.
Mod.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's the
God.
tier 3s then. It would be white phosphorus, or tier 4 at 5s. White phosphorus, special powder, and double barrel. Because let's be realistic, anything else they put in there won't be picked between either of those two. So it might as well be double barrel.
Some kind of overclock that utilises different mechanic, possibly a different status effect. An overclock that actually incurs penalties to the blast wave in exchange for another interesting mechanic, also something like that. I think when that guy who made all his modded overclocks, I think he had that, like, it was like a neurotoxin, it like farted out a neurotoxin cloud instead of a blast wave. There's a lot you could do with it, I think. And also, it sort of it functions like aesthetically as like a pretty neat sawn-off shotgun. It gets a lot right in terms of the sounds and the feel, and the animations. And for just like blowing like the odd grunt away, it feels pretty good to do that with. But I think when it comes to the actual sort of I don't like using the word, but when it comes to the actual meta and actually trying to do well, to me the boomstick doesn't have much, doesn't really have a place. It's just an okay weapon, really, with nothing really special about it. Anything that is special about it is anything that is special about it isn't actually useful and it's just a really fun gimmick that has made it more popular than it actually. It's made it more popular disproportionately to how good it actually is, and that's I take issue with that on principle. I really don't like that that's happened. So special powder annoys me. Although I know it's not going to get removed. It probably shouldn't be removed, to be honest. Yeah.
God, no.
What? What?
Well, no, that's what I'm saying, though. Is I think, honestly, with it being an overclock, all the other overclocks, no matter what you do to them, buff them, add new ones, all that, people won't use it because it's special powder. That's why you need to slap it in a mod and live with it, because it is a part of the gun for most people. So yeah, I think they just need to make it part of the gun and move on, but obviously not always a part of the gun because that might be a bit much. But yeah, that is us on the Gen 1, and this is a pretty widespread, isn't it? Yeah, we got all of them by S.
Yeah, all of them in different tiers. Well,
yeah,
tiers.
And I agree with most of it. And I think this is really something I'm like, it's just not really about technical strength, right? It really is just how it does the strength, or how much of it, or how versatile it is, like stuff like that. Like, because Deeprock aren't terrible fucking developers, right? There's a solid, Ghost Ship is a solid level of balance to all the weapons that they maintain, right?
They're also good at balancing, because you can't really divide Deeprock between the casual mode and the competitive mode. You can't, because there is no competitive mode, but there are still high level players who spec into they want to be really meta at the very best they can be, but you can't actually divide the game between the two. So they do a good job at sort of balancing for both crowds, I think, as well. Balancing it to be fun, but also to make sure things are as good to make sure things are balanced realistically as well. They juggle that pretty well for a game where you can't really divide. You can't actually have an in-game divide and have separate balancings,
So it's just the fact that it's just based on how cheap their picks are. With the special powder is mainly the main example, right? The boomstick is strong, arguably, right? But it's just not for the good reasons and healthy reasons. But yeah, the next time will be Gen 2, which I'm not thinking about yet. So I don't know how cleanly that's going to go compared to this one.
Gen 2 is going to be weird. Gen 2 is going to be weird because I'm probably the one where I know where I stand the least. Gen 3 will be weird because it's going to be a lot to discuss. There's just a lot going on there. But the thing is, Gen 2
I think with this the whole Gen 1 kind of thing is you really need to just make it's so fucking obvious that the evolution of guns, right? And this will be even more at the end, but these guns, all four of them, revolver, grenade launcher, double barrel shotgun, and pistol, right? Most generic fucking things ever, right? They're COD has these things. Actually, I'm not sure if they have a grenade launcher, but no,
they got the War Machine, which is a revolving grenade launcher.
Yeah, these are just simple weapons that exist now. I think that's the same with all the Gen 1 ones as well. But then as time goes on, I mean, obviously Gen 2, they get more and more sci-fi and more interesting. And I think that carries over to everything else as well. So yeah, thank you for watching. I think Harry, you want to thank them all for watching?
No.
I'll thank you twice then. Make up for Harry's rudeness, his stubbornness, his pig-headedness. That's a saying, right?
Yeah.
Good. You're a pighead. Is that an insult? Is that a say?
You're gonna say it then? You're gonna thank them again then?
I did. You
said it by saying you're gonna thank them again.
I'll do it the fourth time. Thank you all for watching. This was our Gen 1 primary, not fucking hell, secondary tier list. if you disagree and or agree and or want to give your takes, do that in the comments below. We will not remove any wrong takes.
I'll tell you what. Oh yeah, I want to ask: do you foresee anything anything else
Boomstick.
ending up in what?
Wait, no, sorry. I thought it would get us backlash because it's the boomstick.
Oh
but
right, yeah. What's going to get us backlash? Boomstick.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
But the Sabata there'll be people.
Yeah, because it's that low down. It will be like it's so clearly the worst, like obviously. But yeah, people won't like the boomstick being that low.
I mean, there'll be people defending the deep core, like the PGL probably. As in, I think we're pretty safe on the Bulldog, but it could be like someone's going to rise out of the ashes for everything else.
High, is it? No one's complaining about you putting things too high, as long as it's not in like S. Like if we put the Sabata in S, we'd get shit for.
Obviously, it's a bit of an abstract question. That's why I'm going to make it a little bit more broad. Do you see anything else ending up in S or D?
D, no.
No.
Same. There is no fundamentally poorly designed weapon other than the Sabata. S, at least one.
Really? I don't know personally. I'm not sure.
I think we need to keep in mind what we define as these ones in versatility of strength. That being something in the
I'd say universality is more accurate.
Yes, but like with RSs, you can fuck up building the Thunderhead, and I would say Sludge Pump, but it's actually kind of difficult to be honest with you. But you can fuck up building them, but it's just that basically all builds you can make are good. But like
it's sort of, I think the mods kind of guide you in the right direction.
Yeah, which I think some of them may or may not do that. We'll get to that when we get to that. But that's what to look forward to. Definitely, maybe an S tier coming up at some point. But no more details.
I mean, I think I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
but,
we've talked about it, but yeah. Obviously, there could be another, to be honest with you. It's just I haven't used this one I've got in mind enough to really
nail gun.
The nail gun. Honestly, though, yeah, I think we need to talk about that more because fucking hell, that would be such an universal improvement.
I think it's just the whole idea of just finally just nailing it down to what should actually be done with it. We haven't really got to that before. It was all like, should it be a completely different weapon or should it just be overhauled as it is?
I've never actually looked at the Sabata and thought, how do I fix this? That's my fix.
We finally pinned down it's almost like a fulcrum point, though. We pinned down like a fulcrum point on which we could operate to really improve the Sabata, and that is the nail gun. There's sort of this like
I think
to
it's
orbit around.
The point is it needs to not be a simple pistol, and I think working off that a pretty strong, distinct path. Would be the nail gun. If they didn't want to choose the shortest, easiest, cheapest method, then they could do like other ones, like making some of those unstables part of the normal gun, or at least in mod form, maybe literally always be an automatic or something. But I think if they wanted to take a more...
retain as much of the original Sabata as they wanted, that's part of it as well.
Yeah, it really could just be a light redesign in the ammo region and like the handle region. Sound effects or bullet visuals. But yeah, I think that is what the Sabata needs. I don't think there is anything that they can do to the Sabata by adding a new overclock or changing its mods that would stop it being a boring piece of shit. And I think that's why it's in D. Thank you for watching for the 5th time.
My forehead is massive.
We'll catch you on the other side of Harry's forehead.
You can't make it there. You won't be able to make it there.
You will die of dehydration.
Exactly. I'm glad that we actually genuinely agree on Sabata though. Like, there was
I think it's pretty inevitable.
There was no shakiness. There's no ambiguity as to whether or not we were gonna disagree on where to put
What
it.
we like and dislike has varied a lot throughout this play, like throughout playing the game. Obviously, I loved the flamethrower, then I hated the flamethrower. Now I'm back at I appreciate the flamethrower, with its flaws. But the Sabata has been a dislike from day one. It was a sucky pistol, but it was the only pistol that Driller had, and it has not changed at all. So there we are.
Anyway, like I keep saying, we are well and truly. This is it. This is over. We're done here. Let's go. Let's go make some babies.
What?
Thank you for watching. If you want to see our
So you did want to thank them for watching. Fucking hell, you got to keep your story straight. Rock and Stone, like and subscribe. Check out our other videos, or don't. We do not control you. Yeah. Bye.